What is up, NFL fans, and welcome back to another episode of the NFL Whip Around. We are getting ready for the final week of the NFL preseason. I'm your host, Jeff Hartman, joined by Coach KT Smith. If you're watching us on YouTube on the Fans First Sports Network YouTube channel, do me a favor, like the video, subscribe to the channel. It costs nothing, so you don't miss out on any of the content there this upcoming season, as well as if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, follow, subscribe. Again, you don't want to miss all of these podcasts as we gear up for the regular season. With that out of the way, Coach, welcome to the show. How's it going?
It's going great. Going great. Lots of football to talk about. I've been watching games all around the league. I'm actually, tell me, this might not be you, but I'm actually enjoying watching some preseason football. All these young QBs make it kind of interesting because you really have a chance to get your first look at them.
You're a junkie. And when you're a junkie, you need your fix. Hell, you were watching the UFL, Coach.
That's true as well. I may have a problem.
That is a legitimate scraping of the bottom of the barrel. Yeah. But still, I'm glad you're going to be the one that's talking a lot about what's going on around the league. And it's all about preseason success. That is the title of this podcast. And let's start off with a division that we know well, the AFC North, widely considered the best division in football. We can go back to last year, 3 out of the 4 teams making the postseason, all 4 teams having a winning record. But this preseason are 1-7. So let me ask you this, Coach. Is there cause for concern really for not just the division, but is preseason success overrated? And I guess we could also throw in our preseason struggles overrated as well. Let's talk about that before we talk about the AFC North.
Right. I think you have to context it in the reason for the struggles. So let's take the 49ers, for example. They had a pretty poor outing this past weekend. The first offense in particular, Brock Purdy's out there for 3 series, and I think they gained 11 or 13 total yards in those 3 series, 3 straight punts. Not very good. Should they be worried? No, they should not, because the 49ers are very aware of what they have and who they are and what their identity is, and they have one of the best schemers in the league in Kyle Shanahan. And so when they get into the game planning, they'll be great. As Steeler fans, you and I both remember what San Francisco looked like in Pittsburgh in week 1 last year. That was a steamrolling of the Steelers. So in that sense, when you're a veteran team and you're not really putting it together during preseason, I wouldn't worry too much about it. But when you got new pieces, when you've got one of these young quarterbacks in the league, or when you have a new quarterback like what they have in Pittsburgh, or when you have significant injuries, then I think there's some cause for concern because you don't get to really build any continuity.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about the AFC North, in particular, the specifics of the Browns, the Bengals, the Ravens, and the Steelers. 1-7. Not a good look. Is there cause for concern in the AFC North?
I think there's a little bit of concern for the Browns and the Ravens and the Steelers, because with the Browns and the Ravens, you got a ton of injuries. I mean, the Browns are being decimated, especially up front. I mean, 2 of their best linemen, Jack Conklin and Jedrick Wills, are recovering from injuries that ended their season early last year. They're not up to speed yet. And then in their preseason game the other night, James Hudson, who's filling in at one of the tackles, he goes out. Jermaine Ifedi, I'm not sure how to pronounce his name, the other tackle, he goes out. Nick Chubb's not back to full strength. They've got some injuries on defense. I mean, the Browns are a mash unit right now up front, and the season hasn't even started yet. That would be a significant concern for me, because we talk about it a lot. O-line needs to build chemistry. You want to get those guys together. A lot of it is about timing and teamwork, et cetera. And the Browns don't have that. Baltimore's banged up as well. The Steelers have a different problem, and that is who's their quarterback. We're going to talk about that in a minute.
Yeah.
What is their offensive identity going to be? They too have some new pieces on the offensive line. So those are 3 teams right there who, well, they're all expected to be good football teams, I think have some concerns, because if you can't get to week 1 healthy, then you've got to start patching things together, and nobody wants to begin your season like that.
I think that, a lot of the concerns that you mentioned, I'm not sure about the Ravens injury situation. A lot of the concerns in the AFC North are based on the offensive side of the ball. When you look at the defensive side, the Browns are still going to have a good defense. Mm-hmm. Steelers are still going to have a good defense. The Ravens are still going to have a good defense. And so maybe, just maybe, you have to hope that these teams that call the AFC North home can bring their whole buoy their team, so to speak, by their defense and win some close games early on until the offense kind of get some players back healthy, get some continuity. We'll see. But let's move to our next topic. It's a team we both cover in the Pittsburgh Steelers, and there's been a lot of talk about a potential quarterback controversy between Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. 2 preseason games down. Russell Wilson getting his first time with the team because he didn't play in week 1. He did not look very impressive in his outing against the Buffalo Bills in week 2, but he also didn't have much time to do anything. What's your take on the quarterback situation in Pittsburgh?
It's a conundrum right now. I mean, it's a little tricky because Russell Wilson's not healthy. They kept him in the pocket on Saturday night against Buffalo, probably because they didn't want him to have to do a lot of moving around because he's rehabbing these calf and ankle injuries. The offensive line was a wreck, so he was kind of like a sitting duck in the pocket. He completed 8 passes, but just for 47 total yards. What does that tell you? It tells you he had to get the ball out quick. He was checking it down constantly. And how much continuity are you really building with your receivers there? How much are you getting into the playbook there? So Russell Wilson's going to go into week 3 of the preseason. He didn't play in the first preseason game. He's going to go into week 3 with having done very, very little. And now you have Justin Fields, who he's played more than Wilson has. He hasn't produced a lot. But when you watch Justin Fields play, there is just a sense that in an offense that doesn't have a lot of explosive players, a lot of guys who can hit home runs, Fields is that guy. And he's going to have strikeouts as well. He's like that old school home run hitter who's batting 190, but he's got 40 bombs.
Yeah.
You just get this sense that Fields is the guy who has maybe the higher ceiling at this point. And I don't know what the Steelers want. What do they really want out of their quarterback? They want a game manager, or do they want a guy who maybe can make those splash plays, but you're probably going to have to live with some of the mistakes? And so they got to answer that question. What do you think?
Well, I was going to ask you as an offensive coordinator, because you've called plays for a very long time. And if you're looking at the Steelers situation, what kind of quarterback do you want? Do you want the explosive player with an unbelievable ceiling, but also some absolutely head-scratching decisions in terms of mistakes? Or do you want the game manager who's just going to kind of protect the football? That's Mike Tomlin's MO. What quarterback are you taking?
Oh, man, it's like falling in love with the hot girl who is crazy,
That's true.
I think it's the hot girl, man. There's a lot to be said for her. She's very tempting. But I think if I'm the Steelers right now, I'm leaning in on that defense because that defense looks very good. Pittsburgh's first 2 preseason games, they've played them without their best players. I mean, Cam Hayward and T.J. Watt and Minka Fitzpatrick haven't played. Alex Highsmith didn't play in the last one. And they're still dominating opposing offenses. Yes, it's preseason, but they look very good. I think Mike Tomlin will go with Russell Wilson if he's healthy because he feels as though he can get enough out of Russell Wilson, enough points to get him to manage the game and score enough points so that the defense will essentially be able to win for him. It's been a winning MO for the Steelers in recent years. I think that's where they'll go. For me, if it's 50-50, I'm giving the ball to Justin Fields because I think he's the future at that position in Pittsburgh.
Now, I'm going to ask you one more question before I give you my answer. If you're the offensive coordinator and you choose Russell Wilson, do you have a package in place for Justin Fields in specific down distances, situations, etc., to put him on the field and take Russell Wilson off?
100%. But it can't be the package that everybody in the world knows it's going to be.
Right.
So you take the Steelers preseason game Saturday night. They in the fourth quarter, they get into a 4th and 2 situation deep in Buffalo territory. And they run a read option with Justin Fields, and he pulls the ball and gets tackled for a 4-yard loss because everybody in the world knows that you're running some sort of read option in that situation. If you put Justin Fields on the field 3 times a game to have him run read options, it's not going to work. You have to build a package for him that accentuates other elements of his game and really that you've schemed specifically for that opponent. Otherwise, what's the point?
See, this is where it gets really dicey and cloudy for me because I look at the situation, and yes, it's from a fan perspective, but I think that matters in some instances. If Russell Wilson is the guy, and I agree, I think he will be the guy in week 1 when they go to Atlanta. if he struggles, but they have these packages in place and Justin Fields gets on the field and actually excels, whether it's a big pass play, whether it's a big run, you're going to start hearing the murmurs that they want that change. And every time Russell Wilson might struggle, it's going to be very similar to 2022 when Mitch Trubisky struggled and Kenny Pickett was sitting on the sideline and everyone wanted to see what he could do. I don't know if Justin Fields is ready for that. And so I would be, as a coach, I want that package, but I also only want to use it in certain circumstances and situations based on the fact that I'm trying to make sure that this stays a cohesive unit. And we don't want that type of, I don't know if dissension is the right word, but I don't think you need that rift between, and then you start having offensive players that say, like, if Russell Wilson is struggling, as he did on Saturday or Friday night, whatever day it was, against Buffalo, and then they're thinking, well, why don't we just play Justin? I think that could be an issue. Do you agree or disagree?
I agree. I think that you don't obviously want those questions in the locker rooms, especially when you know that the players, they respect Russell Wilson, but I think they're wowed by Justin Fields.
Yeah.
And they're young, man. They're 24-year-olds, and you see Justin Fields make a splash play that you know that there aren't that many guys in the league who can make that play, and you say, oh man, he should be our quarterback. Nobody falls in love with the ordinary stuff that Russell Wilson does better than Justin Fields. I think the bigger problem for the Steelers is they stink at wide receiver. And there's one of the problems that Russell Wilson faced, and one of the reasons he checked the ball down so much was there's no guys open down the field. They got one real good receiver in George Pickens. Teams are going to find ways to take him away, and then they can lock down everybody else. And that's a bigger issue for Pittsburgh, in my opinion. But that's another conversation.
It is, and I'll go on record by saying I don't think the Steelers are going to go into week one with their current wide receiver room. That does not mean that they get Brandon Ayuk. I'm just saying I could see them making a trade. There's a lot of teams. Houston is one. Green Bay's another. They are loaded at receiver. They're going to have to cut one of these guys. Maybe the Steelers make a trade at the very end of the week in terms of preseason 3 or after that and say, look, we don't want to have to wait for waivers. We'll trade you a 5th-round pick for this guy or whatever. I think they're going to make that move, and I think hopefully it's going to benefit the offense in general. But the offensive line's got to improve. We don't want this to be a Steelers show. So let's move to our next topic, and that is the Steelers' first week 1 opponent, the Atlanta Falcons, continuing to make moves. They most recently traded for Matthew Judon, and they also picked up Justin Simmons, free agent safety. They're expected to be pretty decent, and now they improved their defense with the acquisitions that I just mentioned. What do you think about their defense, and does it make them favorites in the NFC South?
I mean, it sure helps because Judon addresses a need of theirs that's been a need for a long time, that a dominant edge rusher. If he can be that for them, then I think that it improves their defense significantly. Pairing Justin Simmons on the back end with Jesse Bates gives you 2 really good veteran safeties. We'll see how quickly those guys can gel. If I were the Steelers, I would go right at Justin Simmons in the passing game early because he's a good hitter. He's a thumper, but he's also a guy, I think, whose aggressiveness can be used against him. Still, though, in the bigger picture, I think that gives him a really nice safety pairing. I'm still not ready to cede the division to the Falcons because I think Tampa Bay is sneaky good. And I just feel like Tampa Bay won it last year. Granted, everybody was close. Atlanta's got a lot of potential. They've got the best quarterback in the division now, but it's brand new coaching staff in Atlanta. And you got, let's see how that coaching staff does. I feel like Atlanta and Tampa are kind of 1 and 1A right now. I'm not ready to just crown the Falcons.
What did you think about the decision by Raheem Morris to not play Michael Penix anymore in the preseason? I heard his justification that they've seen what they need and they don't need him to play again. I literally can't think of a reason why you would do that. It's a rookie quarterback. You want to get him as many reps as possible if Kirk Cousins is your guy, or if you need him to come in. Is there anything that makes sense about that to you?
The only thing I can think of, and I'm not saying this is why, but the only thing I can think of is that he doesn't want any locker room dissension and he doesn't want any outside noise about who should be the quarterback, and that he's essentially saying Kirk Cousins is our guy. He's going to play some, and we're not going to put Penix out there and give people the opportunity to say he should be your quarterback. Let Penix have his moment when his moment comes. But this is Kirk Cousins' football team. and we're all circling the wagons around Kirk, and we're going forward from there because you know that there's some people down there who really want to see Penix. He's the shiny new toy, and so that's the only thing I can think of. I'm not saying that's what's going on.
Yeah. Now, you said you watched the 49ers and Saints the other night, and that's an NFC South opponent. What did you think? What's your takeaway on the Saints?
The Saints are just, for me, a team right now that's mired in mediocrity. I don't. What's their identity? I watch what they do on offense right now, and I just say, I say to myself, what are they trying to do? What are they trying to establish? They almost look like a team searching for that identity. Are they really going to put their team on the back of Derek Carr? Are they good enough up front to be able to run the ball consistently? I'm just not sure. Again, who they are. So, I mean, they strike me as your typical 7-10, 8-9, maybe 9-8 team, a middle of the road team, but not much beyond that.
Did they find something in Spencer Rattler, a late round draft pick?
You know, he was in a couple series. He brought a lot of enthusiasm, and he came onto the field, slapping everybody in the helmet, all geeked up, and and I mean, he had a couple of nice plays, but also rifled a few throws out over guys' heads and out of bounds. He just seemed like he needed to be like, oh, all right, calm down, buddy. He was geeked up and needs to settle in. You don't need your QB to be the hype man. You need your QB to be the guy that the famous Joe Montana story when he gets into the huddle in that Super Bowl and the 49ers need to drive 90 yards in the final couple minutes to win the game. And when he gets in the huddle, he sees the actor John Candy and says, hey, look, guys, it's John Candy. Like everybody calm them all down, man. You're the conductor. You're not the drummer.
All right, well, let's stick with the rookie quarterbacks and JJ McCarthy in Minnesota. He had a good preseason, I guess his debut, and it was short-lived as he has a meniscus injury in his knee, has to have surgery, and is going to be out for the year. This was devastating to Vikings fans. A lot of people had a lot of hope in JJ McCarthy, and it was literally just one preseason game. So now the Vikings signed Matt Corral to fill that spot. Sam Darnold's going to be the starter. My gosh, what does this do for Minnesota's playoff hopes, if there ever were any?
Right. So... Right. Where did they have playoff hopes to begin with? Were the Vikings a playoff team in a very competitive division where Detroit and Green Bay are going to be challenging for the division title and Chicago's getting better? I think this is an opportunity right now, one for Sam Darnold to revitalize his career a la Geno Smith. Maybe not. Maybe the future of his career doesn't lie in Minnesota if they're going to be committed to McCarthy down the road. But maybe he gives himself the opportunity to become a starting quarterback somewhere else beyond this year. It's not impossible. I mean, that would be a heck of a reclamation story for Sam Darnold after the famous, I'm seeing ghosts quote from years ago with the Jets. Sam Darnold's an interesting case study in guys that got rushed into the starting lineup probably a little bit too soon. And in that sense, this could be, in the big picture, a blessing in disguise for JJ McCarthy, because guys like Sam Darnold, who were forced to be starters before they were ready, got damaged by that. It took Sam Darnold kind of years to overcome that early experience. And then, you look at Kevin O'Connell in Minnesota, their head coach. He's coached some of these case studies. He coached Marcus Mariota. He coached Johnny Manziel. He coached Dwayne Haskins. Those were all guys thrust into starting lineups before they were ready, whose careers never recovered as a result of it. So maybe for JJ McCarthy, this is the best thing. For the Vikings, I don't know, man. It feels like it's going to be a tough year. Matt Corral, by the way, he did well in that UFL. I saw him in some UFL games, and that probably was his springboard back to the league. But he's not really the answer there. I don't want to say it's a lost year for Minnesota, but it kind of feels that way.
Matt Corral of the famed 2022 quarterback class, which was so good with Malik Willis and Kenny Pickett.
Oh, yeah.
But no, I think Sam Darnold is one of the greatest preseason quarterbacks of all time. He lulls these people into thinking, these fans into thinking, okay, he's going to be good. I think he's turned the corner. At some point, you say a quarterback's got it or he doesn't. And I feel like Sam Darnold's had plenty of opportunities. Unfortunately, I think he still sees ghosts. I'm not putting it to me. And I said this to David Stefano, friend of the show. He's our Vikings correspondent at Fans First Sports Network. When the injury happened, I sent him the tweet from Adam Schefter, and I said, hammer the under for Vikings wins. I don't know what it is. 7.5.
Way to kick a man while he's down, Jeff.
He would do the same thing to me if it was the Steelers. I said, hammer the under. I don't think they're going to be any good. I really don't. And so we'll see. Maybe I'll be wrong, but I don't think I will be. So it sucks for JJ McCarthy. They're going to have to wait a year to see what he can do. Nonetheless, let's keep with the quarterback talk. Our fifth topic here. Patrick Mahomes, of course, Patrick Mahomes. Everyone's talking about the behind-the-back pass to Travis Kelce in the Chiefs preseason game on Saturday. First, before we even go on to the next question, what did you think about that play?
He said he improvised it, and I believe that he did. I don't think that. Yeah, as good as Patrick Mahomes is, he doesn't break a huddle in a preseason game and say to his teammate, "Hey, watch this! I'm going to throw this one behind my back." You don't do that. But I feel as though, yes, it's a phenomenal highlight. It's going to go down on the all-time Patrick Mahomes highlight reel.
I'm sure.
It's going to be on there for sure, and it's great for this type of conversation.
So, what exactly? Can you think of an athlete in any sport who was so good that they could actually toy with their opponents? And if so, what was that for you? I've got a couple in my head. I just don't know where you're going.
So the one that jumps out to me is Larry Bird, who was, probably the ultimate trash talker in basketball. Larry Bird, I remember the famous story of Larry Bird showing up for a 3-point shooting contest at the All-Star game. And he said, these are the best 3-point shooters in the world. And he walked into the locker room and he said, all right, which one of you guys is winning second? But I think the best Larry Bird story was they were playing the Portland Trailblazers, the Celtics, in 1986. And Bird at the opening tip said to the Trailblazers stunk. And Bird said to him, "You guys are so bad, I'm only going to shoot with my left hand tonight." And he scored 47 points just shooting left-handed. He literally shot every shot with his left hand and scored 47 points. That is next level trolling,
It is.
So, that's, but that's by design. What Mahomes did certainly wasn't by design.
No, and I can think too, basketball, I'll go with Allen Iverson. His crossover was so good.
Mm-hmm.
He made dudes fall down.
Yes.
They literally fell down. When you see oh my gosh, it's so good that he's embarrassing people who are trying to play straight up defense against him.
He wobbled prime Michael Jordan with one of those crossovers.
Yeah, he did. I'd also say Magic Johnson with some of the fakes that he had in the passes. The behind the back passes. He knew he was just toying with people.
Yeah.
He looks like he's going to lay it in, but no, he throws it behind his back to someone for a slam dunk. Just that type of stuff was next level. But I would also say I was a catcher in high school, and I was fortunate enough to be on a couple state championship teams in high school, and I loved the game of baseball, and I was a catcher. So I watched some really, really good catchers. You go back into the 70s, Manny Sanguillen for the Pirates. I don't know if you know who Manny Sanguillen is. He's a legend.
He's the one who always had his leg out?
Yeah, leg was at – the guy would throw guys out at second base like that. Pudge Rodriguez, throwing guys out from his knees. Yeah. There's nothing more embarrassing as a base runner than the catcher doesn't even have to get up and throw you out at second base. It's literally look, I got this cannon attached to my shoulder. I don't even need to stand up to throw your ass out. So that's a couple examples. But even when you talk about, to me, football, was there any throw that was more ballsy, in my opinion, because you look at the stage, than Matthew Stafford's no-look pass in the Super Bowl?
Yes.
That clinched the win for the Rams over the Bengals.
Yeah.
That you did a whole article on that, and I remember it was an awesome article. When you see that slow-mo view from that end zone camera, you're like, this dude's doing this in the Super Bowl. This is cool. Patrick Mahomes in his preseason stuff. This is fun. That was in the Super Bowl for all the marbles. That's got to be the ultimate for me.
Yeah, no, that's a great example. I forgot about that. Yeah, that was brilliant stuff.
So, all right, let's finish this up. We're still talking about quarterbacks. You want to do a player profile. This is actually a really intriguing quarterback battle going on in Las Vegas between Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell. And you want to talk about Gardner Minshew. Go ahead.
Yeah, the Raiders announced that he's going to be the week 1 starter.
Oh, they did? I didn't even hear that.
They did, yeah. They announced it yesterday. I love these types of stories, like a Gardner Minshew story. So here's a guy, goes up to Washington State, plays for the legendary Mike Leach, learns that air raid system up there, puts together ridiculous. Look up Gardner Minshew's college stats sometime. I mean, he put up absurd numbers, up there in the Northwest. But a lot of people didn't take him seriously because that Mike Leach style of play, spread offense, up tempo, that doesn't translate real well to the NFL. So Minshew winds up being a late round draft pick and then kind of claws his way to a starting job in Jacksonville. And he's got the stash and the mullet and all that going on. Eventually, moves out of there. He's in Philly for a year. He wins a starting job in Indianapolis for a brief period of time. And that, they move on from him and he wins it. Now he's just won a starting job with his third NFL team. He seems to be the guy that every team views as a stopgap and then they'll move on from him, but he keeps winning starting jobs. And I just feel as though now it might not be permanent in Vegas either, but at the same time, Gardner Minshew just feels like one of those dudes you want to root for because he's that underdog story that keeps coming through.
I'll never think of Gardner Minshew without hearing his story where he was a freshman and he broke his hand on purpose to get another year of eligibility. He took a hammer to his non-throwing hand so that he broke his hand on purpose so he get like a redshirt year. Like just insane stuff. Like the dude.
I didn't know that. That's crazy.
I'm pretty sure it was him. It might have been someone else. I'd probably put money down that it was Gardner Minshew, but he's a good story. This is what makes football great is you get those guys. You get these guys that kind of come out of nowhere. And even if they just become kind of like a cult hero, and even if they only have a few years in the sun, they still have that time. When you think about other sports, I just don't feel like they have those people. I don't feel like basketball has those guys. It's a very superstar driven league. Yeah. Same with hockey, same with baseball. But football, you get the Nick Foles, the guy that we talked about last year. Yeah. He's a career backup and he just finds like something in Philadelphia en route to a Super Bowl when Carson Wentz goes down. Just remarkable stuff. That's what I love about football is you get those guys. So, Gardner Minshew, congratulations. I thought it was still a battle, but I guess they made their decision that he is going to be the starter in week 1. So good for him. All right, Coach, what's coming up on the call sheet this week?
Yeah, so episode 70, Brian Davis wants me to continue with Steelers guys because the Steelers have a Hall of Fame number 70, but I told him it will not be a Steeler profile.
Okay.
Make it too Steeler-centric. So it's cut down week, and I was going to do this last week, but I did not. I turned the conversation really to the young quarterbacks last week. So I actually thought last week was cut down week, but I forgot the NFL's doing them all at once now.
All at once, yep.
Yeah, so we're going to get it, just into those conversations about cut down week. How do NFL coaching staffs make those determinations? And then what does it mean for the guys who get cut? I'll tell some interesting stories about players who teams have purposely cut early as a favor to them so that they can kind of catch on with other teams. One of those players, Chris, how do you say Chris Oladokun's last name?
Oladokun, yeah.
Oladokun, yeah. The Steelers did him a favor by cutting him early a couple years ago so he could catch on somewhere else. And he's playing some pretty good backup football now for the Chiefs. And so there's some really good cut down day stories, and we're going to kind of get into that conversation.
That's awesome. That's great. And I want to tell everyone that's listening to this podcast to make sure you check out the Draft Dynasty podcast with Andrew Wilbar and Jeremy Betts. You hear that in between this show and the call sheet. We're going to have more NFL content coming out as the regular season approaches, so be on the lookout for that. But that's it, Coach. Another whip around in the books. I will see you next week. Thanks for your time. Take it easy.